Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Build Live, presented here by Channel 9. I am thrilled to be here, joined with Sam George, Director of Azure IoT. My name's Tim Hewer. I'm your host for the next section here, and we're here to talk about all things IoT.
All right.
Sam, welcome aboard here.
Thanks, Tim.
Good to have you back.
Yeah,
Sam's
good to see
a
you.
veteran to Channel 9, good Channel 9
Yep.
friend here. So we had a great keynote,
Yeah,
and you had a lot of toys.
a lot of toys.
I didn't like your excuse of not being able to fly the drone. So, like, how many times in rehearsals did you actually fly it? We can tell the
Oh,
truth here.
I fly the drone. I actually own a DJI drone and love it. But honest to goodness, you do need a commercial pilot license.
Yeah.
So funny story, I got set up to take one. And they said, you have to go over to this place and you'll have, 2 hours to take it. And I was like, 2 hours? What? Could you send me the background material? And they did, and it's basically getting a pilot's license.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so we had DJI help.
That was a great. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because
Yeah.
that was pretty exciting. People can relate to
Yep.
drones, and it's fun. And
Yep.
you have a drone, I have a drone, and
Yep.
it's a lot of good time. So tell me, what did exactly we see? There was some AI and IoT and Edge. We heard a lot of terms there. Like,
Yeah.
break it down for us a little bit.
Absolutely. So what we did is we took we built an AI model using Azure machine learning that could recognize defects in those pipes. It's an iterative process, and in the end, we came up with an AI model. And what we did is we put it in a Docker container, and then using Azure IoT Edge, we're able to deliver that from the cloud down to the edge device. Now, in that case, the edge device was being played. That role was being played by the Windows PC.
Okay.
That can also work on a Raspberry Pi or smaller, or as large as you want. So what we did is we had the model running on the Windows PC, and then the DJI Mavic Air was streaming video back to the Windows PC.
Okay.
So from the Windows PC's point of view, it was just running IoT Edge, which just had a video feed coming through it. And then that was being run through the AI model just to continuously look for defects. And it was running somewhere around 15 times a second.
Wow.
And then when it found a defect, it would just highlight where it was in the video feed, and that's how we drew that box.
And that was in the live feed. That
was in the live
that
feed.
The Edge device was
Yep,
basically showing.
that was all
us.
live. That was all working code.
So the SDK that we were talking about actually wasn't running on the drone itself.
Correct.
It's basically the companion device that is receiving the feed
Yep.
from there, and
That's right.
That's the essence of the SDK from DJI standpoint.
That's the SDK for DJI for the Mavic Air.
And the Mavic
Now
Air.
the SDK that runs on the M210, the big, amazing looking one.
Yeah.
That actually runs right on the drone.
Really?
Yeah, and
Okay.
so it's got compute and AI capabilities on board, and so you can actually put Azure IoT Edge on that now, and then deploy containers to it and run it right on the drone.
Not exactly the one we see at soccer fields
No,
around the country.
no,
Right? Yeah, probably
yeah.
scare little people.
They're pretty crazy. So they can actually fly in sub-zero weather. They're magnetically shielded. They can fly right next to power lines. And
Yeah, that's
they're
great.
they're awesome.
So you mentioned that, so how can I get my hands on this? Like,
Yep.
can I do the similar demo that we just saw?
You can actually. So great news is if you stop by our booth this week, so DJI is offering a discount on the DJI Mavic Air for all build attendees. So you can get a drone. It's a pretty good discount. And then they have the Windows SDK that they've made available. And so you can take everything that you just saw and get that working in about 5 minutes. You can even do what we showed in Scott's keynote that Jeff Holland showed, where you can take an image classifier built with the Cognitive Services custom vision service.
Yes.
Just upload a bunch of pictures, label them, build an image classifier. You can stick that thing in the base station for the drone too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And so the other customer you talked about was Qualcomm,
Yep.
the little camera device. Is it
Yeah.
a very similar model, or is it a different type? Was it container-based as well?
Yeah, exactly. So the neat part is that so Azure IoT Edge running on devices, it runs the same on the Qualcomm camera versus the DJI drone, and so you have a consistent platform you can deploy cloud services to. Yep, and it's container based, and so the Qualcomm camera also has some advanced AI capabilities like hardware accelerated AI. And so you can push containers down there that take advantage of that when they get there, and that'll be available later this summer in preview.
Awesome.
Yep.
So a lot of cool device things,
Yeah.
training things. So let's talk about the cloud aspect of
Yeah.
IoT. So we're looking at this feed, the video feeds coming. Like, what is orchestrating like all this IoT information?
Yeah.
Like, what is what should I care about as a developer in that space,
Yep.
and what do we provide?
Yeah. So actually, we provide quite a bit at this point. So the demos that you saw in Scott's keynote, they were showing both a simple button as well as an IoT Edge device. And those were using our Azure IoT Hub service. So IoT Hub service is one of the Azure services. You can provision it in just a minute or two, connect devices to it, and then it enables you to completely manage, control, have two-way communications with your devices, and do it across millions of devices sending trillions of messages. And so it scales along with your need. Now that's just the cloud gateway part. And if you look at an IoT solution, it goes from everything from devices connecting to it, feeding data, data storage, data analytics, even business process integration. The way we talk about an IoT solution is that they're always composed of sort of three main sort of areas. There's the area that deals with the things themselves, which are devices used for typically monitoring something that's happening in the real world. Then in the cloud, there's insights that you gain from those things as a result. And then once you gain those insights, then you drive actions. So as an example, with the DJI drone, if you're pushing out a workload to the edge, and I recognize that, hey, there's a problem in one of these pipes, then an alert comes back. You can almost think of that as the insight, and the alert then is for alerting a technician, right? And that's the action part.
Right.
So in addition to all of these platform capabilities like IoT Edge and IoT Hub and all that, we have solution accelerators, which make it easy to provision all of those services in just a few minutes. And so you can get a real working end-to-end IoT solution going right away. And then the thing we just announced last year, and you can already use today, is Azure IoT Central. And that is a SaaS offering for IoT. And that really takes it to the next level. So you can push a button and have us create an IoT Central app. It takes about 30 seconds.
Wow.
And you're ready to go. You can model devices, create monitoring rules, trigger actions. The best part is that as you add devices, we automatically scale the app and keep the whole thing running.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned solution accelerators.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of one of those that we offer?
Yeah, so we have a solution accelerator called remote monitoring. And what the solution accelerators are for is it's for starting a new custom IoT project where you want ultimate control. If you think about IoT Central, it's a SaaS offering. In a lot of ways, it's got extensibility points, but it's something we're managing. If you want ultimate control, if you want to be able to modify every single service or change the service architecture, those are what our solution accelerators are for. So remote monitoring, which is, we have a significant update, which is now generally available this week, is something you can use, deploy in just a few minutes and get a working end-to-end solution. But then, for example, and it uses Azure Storage to store all the device telemetry that's coming through. If you want to switch that out to use time series insights or to use Azure SQL or anything, that takes just a few minutes, and you just go into the Azure portal and modify it. So that's an example of some of the solution accelerators that we've got. The solution accelerators are really about IoT patterns that then you can customize and produce, either vaccine tracking or fleet management or monitoring connected cows. So
awesome. Connected cows.
That happens.
Remember that one.
That happens.
Yeah, I remember that one. So great. This is great. Once again, we're here with Sam George, who's the director of Azure IoT. If you're watching online, log in below to be able to ask your questions. You want to take some questions from the audience?
Sounds great.
Okay, great. Irakli, do we have a solution like an app center for IoT? Assume we build our own devices with particular specification. It would be nice to have the possibility to test codes with different devices, emulators, and peripheral emulation.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We have. So if I understand the question, it's about getting a solution together where I can test a bunch of devices. IoT Central already lets you do that. You can provision not just real devices, but also simulated ones as well. Model them out, have them send artificial data, and get it working. And then you can get sort of the interface definition of how that device should contact the cloud, and then deploy that to a real device.
Okay,
So,
okay, that's great. So custom devices, we got some options there. So let me ask you this question. Like, you've been in IoT business now for a while.
Yep.
I think I apply the mother-in-law theory to everything I do. If I were to say Internet of Things to my mother-in-law, she's going to look and say, well, that's the thermostat thing.
Right, right.
Have we evolved beyond that? Like, what is IoT? What are the things now that we're talking about, and what do they span these days?
Right. No, that's a great question. Um, something that's the most amazing part of being part of IoT is that it's touching almost every part of everything we do every day now. And a lot of it you don't see. You know, you see the things in your home, but for example, you don't see that, you know, the elevators in the building keep working because someone already knows when they need maintenance now. They don't break down anymore. You don't see that water keeps running because, you know, we're predicting the maintenance needs of those things with IoT devices. And there's thousands of other scenarios: smart cities, smart buildings, agriculture. For example, in agriculture, you're seeing a significant decrease in the amount of natural resources we have to use. Less pesticides, less energy pumping the water for it, and, you know, providing for more food for everybody on the planet. So those are the kind of things where IoT, in a lot of ways, is invisible to the naked eye. But for those companies that are benefiting from it, it's completely transformative. I mean, it's, you know.
Sometimes these hidden gems are way more impactful than
very much
my refrigerator
yeah,
showing my movies or something like that.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering Imagine Cup this year, and I was fortunate enough to be a judge this year, and a lot of the really great solutions coming out of these students' minds were IoT-based, you know, really impactful, like, you know, earth-changing kind of solutions that were, you know, cloud and device-based and everything like that. You know, heart monitoring and a lot of great stories. What are the things, you know, you're, especially for Microsoft, you're in the heart of it. You know, you work with a ton of our customers and everything. What is the one thing that gets you most excited right now that you're able to talk about?
One of the things that I love about being part of IoT is that there's so much of it that is going towards the betterment of humankind. You know, there's a tremendous amount of work happening in IoT to reduce environmental impact. From the smart agriculture thing to smart energy. You know, one of the problems, I'll talk about energy for a second, and it's another one of those invisible IoT kind of things where, you know, as more and more demands are getting placed on the grid, and at the same time you're seeing more and more renewable energy resources being put onto the grid as well, there's a need for both being able to control where that renewable energy goes, as well as being able to control devices to prevent brownouts so that you don't have to build new, you know, coal-fired plants and things like that. Those kind of things are happening right now. Smart agriculture, being able to reduce pesticides and water usage and have better outcomes. There's a project that was driven out of Microsoft called FarmBeats, for example, that's super cool. And this is being replicated worldwide right now. And it's benefiting even very small farms. And the solution uses low-cost sensors that are going into farms, and then drone, or in some cases, just weather balloons with down-facing cameras. And what it does, the solution does, is it takes all of that information and it synthesizes a report for a farmer. Here's where you need to water more. Here's where you have a pest infestation. Here's where, you know, here's where it's time to harvest. It's pretty phenomenal stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So once again, if you have questions regarding Azure IoT right now, be sure to log in to below the stream right here and ask your questions for Sam George here. So we're here at a developer conference.
Yep.
Lot of different languages that people develop and stuff like
yeah.
what. As you who owns the IoT platform for Azure, you know, how do I get started? What's the best way? If I don't work for one of these companies or one of the scenarios, but you know, I do want to, you know, maybe grow my skills or be involved, like, and I'm just a developer now. Like, how do I get started? What do I care about? Where do I start first?
Well, something that we've done is, so if you go online and search for Azure IoT device catalog, there's a whole set of starter kits, including the starter kit that you saw in Jeff Holland's demo with the little button that was made by a third party. You can grab one of those. I forget, they're pretty inexpensive. Create a free IoT hub, you know, create a free function, and actually do what you just saw in the demo. It's super easy to get started. One of the things that we do in IoT is that we've really placed a premium on meeting developers where they are. So all of our SDKs, both in the cloud and on devices, are all multi-language, and they're also cross-platform.
That's great.
So we support Node and C# and C, Java. There's one other, Python. So great support across both Windows and Linux.
So no matter what kind of developer you are right
Yep.
now, it's a matter of really familiarizing yourself with the APIs and
Yep.
SDKs, understanding your scenario, and
Yep.
really just writing the code like
Yep.
how you were. So no
Exactly, and a bunch of great tools, obviously, in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code
That's awesome.
that are already available.
Yeah. Okay, we got another question. So Ryan McDonald, this is a good one, asks, what kind of security measures are being taken to secure IoT communications from end to end?
Great question. So a couple key important principles. Number one, from our cloud service that runs in Azure down to devices. So we support a couple very popular communication protocols, MQTT, AMQP, as well as HTTP. All of the protocols that we support are all TLS compliant. We don't support any non-TLS compliant protocols. The other thing we do is we have per-device certificates. We support X509 certificates. We also, in the cloud, support all sorts of security features like IP whitelisting and blacklisting. So if you decide, I only want to accept inbound connections from a certain IP range of IoT devices, you can absolutely do that. And it gives you a nice way to lock things down. There's a bunch of great work that's happening across. We also have a security auditor program, so that as you build an IoT solution, if you want a third-party auditor to come and look at it, we have the security program for Azure IoT. We have a comprehensive cyber-physical security guidance published online for developers. And then most recently, we announced Azure Sphere. And Azure Sphere is sort of a turnkey end-to-end solution for communicating securely with very tiny devices. I mean, the size of your thumbnail. And those are those MCU devices that Satya was talking about that morning. There's about 9 billion of them shipped every year. Right now, best estimates are by 2020, there'll be about 15 billion of those connected.
Wow.
And the security on those is, hasn't really evolved for the last 15 years. And so Azure Sphere is this breakthrough product that enables you on an MCU class device to have an incredibly industry-leading secure experience between the cloud and that device. It includes a secure operating system, security monitoring service, patches, remediations, as well as obviously a secure communication channel.
That's great.
Yep.
It's as we have more of these things connected, and we joke about the connected, kitchens and things like that. But it is. I mean, these become surfaces, right? That you can imagine, the inspecting pipes. You probably want those devices on a whitelist somewhere, at a minimum, and a lot of different security scenarios there. Yeah, it's growing devices. I was looking at my own Wi-Fi hub today and seeing how many devices are connected.
It's incredible, yeah.
You don't realize.
You don't realize it.
Yeah.
There's something else we're doing too, which is this week we're announcing the general availability of Azure Maps. And why that's significant, why we're investing in that is that, many of these things that exist out in the world, they're not stationary, they move around.
Yeah.
And so being able to have geospatial capabilities where you can say hey, I want the best route to go service this thing, or I want to know which of these are in a geofence and when they leave. That's an important part of IoT as well. So we're very proud this week to have the general availability of Azure Maps.
And tell me a little bit more about there. What is backing Azure Maps?
Yeah.
And is that also just another Azure service?
It is. It's just another Azure service. You can use it with your Azure subscription, provision it along. And in fact, our new Solution Accelerator remote monitoring is already using Azure Maps. And it has everything you would expect in a modern mapping capability. There's, it runs in browsers, it runs on devices and things like that. But it's all backed by a partner of ours, TomTom. So they provide all the mapping data. But yep, all runs in Azure, and you can integrate it pretty easily in your IoT solutions.
Now, I'm going to play stupid here because I generally am, but is that something that will also run on the edge devices as well, or is that more of a companion? You need more compute for that, or
Yeah,
how
it
does that work?
actually, so no, it's a great question. It'll run on the edge, yes, but it runs in an online mode, right? It
Okay.
still needs to connect to the cloud for that corpus of data.
Right.
So for example, if you were to say offline, hey, I want directions between these two locations, or I want to look something up, it needs the online capability to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
And all that integration with the IoT hub and all of those things work well with that as a
Yep.
service as
Absolutely.
well. SDKs are now generally
All are available.
same languages that we talked about
Yep.
before, Java,
Yep.
so catering to all developers here.
Yep, absolutely.
You also talked about a little bit about some other projects that some of customers, like Rockwell Automation.
Yeah.
I've heard them talked about a lot. What can you share about what they're doing there? Maybe expand a little bit about what you talked about.
Absolutely. So in the keynote, you saw that we were featuring Rockwell Automation and industrial automation, or a operational dashboard. Rockwell does a tremendous, they're in a tremendous number of industries. They're obviously very sort of famous for manufacturing, where they'll go in and set up a manufacturing plant and automate the whole thing. But also, power generation, infrastructure, mining, oil and gas. I mean, they're sort of everywhere.
Right.
The biggest thing that Rockwell and many of the commercial IoT partners are using IoT for is for predictive maintenance. And the general way that predictive maintenance works is that once they start instrumenting, the equipment that powers these industries, they're using Azure Machine Learning as they label failure points. They're using Azure Machine Learning to figure out when those failures might occur again in the future, with an incredibly high accuracy. And what's fascinating about this is that, so actually I should say, number one, all of those industries are getting smarter to where they won't have any unplanned downtime. But the thing that's fascinating about it too is watching as they continue to innovate. Like once you can do predictive maintenance, that starts to change things. Like for example, a lot of these companies like Rockwell Automation, they have to stock parts all over the world, right? If you can predict the maintenance needs of things and you know what's going to break when, you don't have to stock as many parts, right? And it might seem sort of trivial, but it has a huge effect on the supply chain. It also means that as you're going through customs, you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, this part which was trying to get through is now not able to get through in time. The other thing that's pretty amazing about it as well is, as you're able to predict the maintenance needs of things, it also means that when you're sending technicians out to fix it, you generally know the right parts to bring the first time. So it has this big ripple effect on these businesses.
This is kind of like like IoT and all of the smarts and analytics is making just-in-time inventory smarter. It's like bringing that back. Whereas before we're just guessing. Like,
it was just servicing.
The elevator maybe has a maintenance window of X number of years, but now like the elevator tells us when the maintenance window is.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's exciting. Yeah. All right. So 2 minutes left here before we move on to the next one. What do you want to leave developers with? What's your call to action? What should we do? What should we
I'd say,
see on the horizon?
Absolutely. I'd say for developers, IoT is it's definitely expanding pretty quickly right now. There's a huge developer opportunity. I mean, the amount of vertical specializations in IoT is just staggering. This technique of IoT can be applied to virtually anything. And a lot of the innovation that we're seeing there's a lot of innovation in the startup space around this. The thing I'd say to developers as well is, consumer is definitely an interesting space, but there's a tremendous amount of innovation to happen over on the commercial side as well. When you consider an industry that might save hundreds of millions of dollars from a simple IoT solution, you can imagine how powerful that is for a startup to be able to fill that niche.
Right.
And the other thing I'd leave them with is it's so easy to get started now. I mean, we've been at this for many years now, and we're getting to the point where, building an at-scale IoT service is really just, a day or two. I mean, it's pretty fast now, so now's the time.
And a lot of the tools and SDKs and
they're all
things
there
like
now.
the solution accelerators, a lot of stuff, and open source as well. As I see on the horizon, I see a lot of the cloud business in general is a lot of open source,
Yep.
and IoT is a huge part of that as people
That's
are
right.
contributing back and forth.
And all of our developer SDKs as well as IoT Edge now are all open source.
That's great.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, Sam, it's been really great having you here at Build, enjoying the keynote. Make sure that if we're here at Build, we go check out DJI, maybe
That's
get
right.
a discount on a Mavic,
Go fly a drone.
and get it. That's another way to get started,
That's
right? Yeah. So we can get started using their SDKs
All
and IoT Hub. So
Yep.
thanks for coming on. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining in as well on Channel 9 Live. Keep tuned in. Immediately after this, we are going to enjoy an overview of AI for developers. It will be live streamed right now with Harry Shum. So thanks for joining us, and keep tuned in. We'll be here all day.